So Ron, we were discussing how natural disasters exasperate, basically,
Yes.
the housing crises.
Mm-hmm.
And we were also discussing some levels of touch points or response. You got these emergency response after disaster and relief that, there's only a few organizations with the expertise to step in. And then kind of moving on to rehabilitation, development of a community.
Yes.
Tell me about ways that Go International has stepped into some natural disasters, and whether it be some success stories on that, and maybe even move over to how does that affect the perspective and faith of participants on your mission teams?
Oh yeah. What we have seen, and I was astounded when I first began to be exposed to the world of natural disaster and relief for that kind of thing, at how long it takes to recover from a disaster. I think most of us would just assume that in a few months, people came in, a few months, we got the water's gone, we got cleaned up.
Because that's when we've stopped watching it on television,
exactly.
right?
It's no longer newsworthy, but the reality is there are a number of disasters in this country that really the communities have never fully recovered from and are still working on 5, 7, 10 years later. I have a good friend who has a ministry, Next Step Storm, and he is a long-term development guy, and he's been working, for example, in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. They had a tornado there that has been almost 10 years ago. And the tornado actually tore through a very poor part of town, several very poor neighborhoods. The folks who had insurance and in the nice neighborhoods, those houses were all rebuilt within a few years. It still took time. But these poor neighborhoods, people are still living with tarps on their roofs, all kinds of substandard situations because they were underinsured or uninsured. And so this friend at Next Step Storm, he's able to connect to resources, and FEMA actually provides materials to do this sort of work. All he has to do is provide the labor, volunteer labor. And so he's still working on a natural disaster that's almost 10 years old. And that just, to me, that was staggering when I realized that. The same is true, of course, internationally, only multiplied. Natural disasters in developing countries, often people never recover. The village or the city is simply gone, and they have to move somewhere else and start over. But you asked about the impact on individuals. I have
the individuals, the participants that
who come and help,
try to be of help.
Yeah, and I just want to say that, man, if you have the opportunity, if you've not volunteered on a team internationally or locally, I just really want to encourage you to do that. If you've done it locally but never gone international, let me really challenge you to get outside of this context. I mean, this is a wonderful country. I love our country, and it has so many things to offer, so many wonderful people and places. But I really want to challenge you to consider getting outside of our country, meeting people in another context, another culture, another part of the world is just an experience like no other. And being able to come alongside, to form friendships, to form partnerships, and work alongside and see things happen, see improvements made, or disasters relieved somewhat, or pain relieved, or housing improved, or it's an incredible experience.
Definitely.
And so I just encourage you, if you've not done that, please consider it. It can be a life-changing experience. And if you what I love about Adventure Serve, Andy and Adventure Serve, you're capturing the hearts of young people, very young, high school students, and challenging them to serve. And when that happens at a young age, they generally will keep doing that the rest of their life.
It's really our hope with Adventure Serve Ministries that this might be their first missions trip, either middle school, high school, and most likely they're going to go outside of our country someday. And they will also hopefully start thinking about, well, why can't I just do this down the street after school a little bit, or on a Saturday with our youth group, and make it a practice, a discipline of faith almost. So we've been talking about the participants a little bit and what happens for them when they go outside the country and step into an area of need and just drastic need, and how it broadens their mind, broadens their perspective, help them connect with the culture. Tell me, how does this connect with faith, and why,
Well, Andy, at the core, of course, we believe that in the Great Commission, which Jesus gave us to go into all the world and make disciples, and the way we have interpreted that at Go International, we take it very seriously, and we believe that is our core purpose, is to make disciples for Christ. But when you are working in developing nations, so often there are hindrances to disciple making that are physical hindrances. There is poverty, there is hunger, there is great need that inhibit the disciple making process in part. And the fact is, Jesus also, again and again in his ministry, he healed the sick. He told us and showed us that we are to encourage and to help our neighbor. That faith without works, is dead. And so it connects at, I think, at a very core level. If we're not serving locally, and I believe if we're not serving locally, regionally, and globally, we're missing the real essence of the gospel. In this day and age. I've got friends who say to me, "Hey man, I'm too scared to go out in the country. There's terrorists and there's all kinds of things. I don't like to fly and all that." And I say, "Hey, I understand. Yeah, I don't like any of that either. Flying is not glamorous. It's no fun. It's uncomfortable, but it's worth the sacrifice, the pain, the effort, the cost to get to the places that others are not going, and you have the opportunity to really connect and love and be blessed." And we hear it over and over. It's almost a cliche that when people go and do this, they're expecting often to be a blessing to others, and they are. But what really happens is their lives, their hearts are changed. They're blessed beyond their comprehension by the people that they're meeting and serving alongside. And,
give us an example of a trip maybe where either you or the group itself, the participants that were serving, just were taught something from the people they met.
Absolutely. I can talk in generic terms on this because it has happened over and over again, and then I'll try to give a specific example. But we have we've got a church in Tennessee that travels with us regularly, once or twice a year. They recruit folks from their community and their church to go, and they love to serve, and that has taken time to develop. But repeatedly, and they believe it is in many ways, it's the source of so much of the joy and energy and excitement that is happening in their local church. Repeatedly, we get into situations where, and I believe this is just divine intervention. The Lord puts us in places where it's just the right time and just the right need for that place. And it comes together, and people then experience being the hands and feet of Christ, which is not a selfish experience. It becomes this spiritual experience, this love exchange where the person being served loves back in a way that is just it's spiritual. It's not earthly, and so we have just had that happen again and again. We were in this was in Honduras. We had a team of folks and a family. Actually they brought their daughter, who was only about, I think she was quite young. It was a husband and wife brought their 10-year-old daughter, and we would sometimes we were doing a project in a village, and sometimes we will go door to door just if we have some time to offer to pray for people, to meet people, introduce ourselves. And they were at a house, a substandard house, a very tough, really just a shack. And so this husband and wife and their daughter knock on the door, and the family opens the door, and we did have a translator with them, and they explained what they were doing. The family smiled and invited them into the little place, and on the floor was a little girl who was obviously had some significant disability. And what we later came to know was that her name was Daisy, and she had a severe case of, I believe it was multiple sclerosis, so MS. It was debilitating. She could not walk. But in this setting, there was no wheelchair. There was nothing. Her existence was there on that floor.
Wow.
On a mat.
Wow.
Well, this little 10-year-old girl just was drawn to Daisy. She went right over and started talking, but she didn't speak the language, but communicating with her and loving her. And she came back from that trip and said, "Mommy, I really want to do something for Daisy." Well, she set out and to raise money. She ended up raising thousands and thousands of dollars as she told this story. Ultimately, we were able to help that family build an addition onto their shack and reinforce the shack so that Daisy now has her own bedroom. We were able to help with a wheelchair for Daisy. Daisy was able to go out into the neighborhood, and the impact on that 10-year-old girl, she's almost 18, still really to this day, she says that shaped me in a way that I know I want to give my life away. I want to serve people. And so that just was we just walked into that one day.
I'm getting tingles just from that. It's my spine and just that, and that girl here from the States that now is 18.
Yes.
Not only did she help, she built, she received leadership opportunity. She recognized the larger kingdom of God and the amount of, with all these dollars coming to her saying, "You have seen through Christ's eyes, and I want to get behind what you're doing because I know it's of the Lord." And then that there's this child in another country that views Americans differently simply through that encounter.
Exactly.
And is able to experience the world at a normal level.
A more normal level. And I want to say that this young lady has gone on to be the top of her class. And I think she was exceptional when she was 10 years old, but I believe the experience that she had there, and I want to say she went back many times over and over. She probably went between 10 and 18. She went 6 or 7 times, and it shaped her and caused her to become, I think, a leader. And I just expect great things for her life.
That's something we see so often with Adventure Serve, that how our young people and just any participants' potential combined with a real need somehow matures them in the process of trying to fit together what they have to offer with what is presented to them, and that makes them more capable to do great things.
It does.
For God in this world.
It does. I think it's one of the best things we can do is give young people, give anyone an opportunity to serve, to love, to help, It'll change them. It'll change you. If you've not had much opportunity to do that, please get in touch with us. It'll change your life.
I think we better close with that.
Yes.
I want to say this conversation has been brought to you by Hands On Originals up in Lexington, a t-shirt company, great people up there, as well as Strong Tower Mortgage Lenders and the Red River Gorge Canopy Zipline Tour. Good people out in the gorge and a really fun experience. And this is the Bluegrass Good Giving Challenge. Both Go International and Adventure Serve Ministries are two fabulous nonprofits, and as Ron was saying earlier, just how essential it is to give to the work of the church, not always just at church, but through ministries that are doing the work of the church and are putting these things in actions in order to continue our work. Those dollars are needed, so please prayerfully give.
Yes.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks, Andy. Bye-bye.